or do you use any tools to do your keyword research?
Yeah, I had Scrapebox for a while. I don't know if you ever heard of Scrapebox, but it's a really flexible tool. You can do things like scrape email addresses, URLs, all kinds of stuff. But I've been using it for scraping massive quantities of all entitled keyword list. I use it. It does require proxies though.
How does that work?
So basically, it has a little add-on that where you can use an operator. You know how you can enter something like all entitled colon in the address bar in Chrome. You can basically import the whole list of keywords and add that operator to the whole list in bulk, and it'll cycle through the keywords using proxies and do the calls using the proxies. So even if even if you're in a different geographic location, the proxies, you'll get some data back. Of course, it's still, it's Allentitled is not a perfect value, but it's usually ballpark. And I have another tool that is from a little small website from a guy in the U.S. It's called Scrapers and Bots. And I have a tool that it's supposed to scrape all entitled, but I've had issues with it when I'm not in the U.S. And depending on your internet connection and things like that. But anyway, I can scrape the auto-suggest stuff, like when you begin to type a few letters, how you have entries that pop up for common searches that people do. It can scrape all of those in mass.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The thing about I had somebody before, like allentitled.co was a tool you could use. I paid someone on Upwork to make me a tool similar to what you use Scrapebox for to automatically pull out the all entitled stuff. And it was at that point I had the tool back and I said to the guy, great, I'm going to test it. And then I tested it in his tool and then in my browser, and the results were like wildly different. Like the all entitled was like 50 on one and 150 on the other one. I was like, dude, what you've made just doesn't work. Like, what have you made? This is not right. But it turns out like the results can vary sometimes. Like most of the time it's okay, but sometimes like massively depending on where you are. Like me and you could do the same all entitled search right now and get wildly different results because we're both in different countries.
Yep, 100%. And I actually ran this test one time. I was using proxies. I used I think I ran like 5 geographic locations. The IP location of these proxies were supposed to be like one was the East Coast of the U.S. 2 in the East Coast, one was in the West Coast. I think one was somewhere in between, maybe 1 or 2 in between, something like that. So they weren't always all that close. A couple times, sometimes there was a big difference. I did about 500 keywords and I compared them, and it was just interesting to see that. I had this idea after scraping a lot of all-entitled data over time that I need to kind of give it some fudge factor, as we say, like some rough percentage where I have some leeway up or down. Because I think that what happened was, what I realized after doing this so many times was using the KGR process, it gets you in the ballpark, but I was highlighting spreadsheet data, the cells, based on a color, based on the KGR ratio. But if the all entitled, if it's going to have some, if the tolerance is going to be different, that means that I'm going to be I'll unintentionally be ignoring a lot of potential keywords. And I realized I had been doing that the whole time. So I changed my ratio. I made it higher. But now I'm mostly trying to approach it with what I'm saying, more look at with a overview approach where I'm not as focused on things like all entitled, but more the general aspect of all entitled low. That's nice, but I don't dwell on that too primarily. I try to look at other factors as well.
Okay, so all entitled just gets you into the ball. Like it makes the shortlist for you, I guess. Then.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's what I would have said, because I can just in mass I could flag some general range with all entitled is low, and helps me narrow it down pretty quickly.